The city glowed beneath the storm, lights reflecting on wet streets like broken stars. Inside a small apartment on level 32, Eli Warren, a tired human engineer, sat alone with his cup of coffee. The sound of the rain was the only thing that filled the silence. He was used to it, the quiet, the loneliness, the hum of old machines around him, until he heard a soft knock. At first, Eli thought it was the wind, but then came another sound, a light scratching, slow and careful, like someone afraid to be noticed. He frowned, stood up, and walked to the door. When he opened it, a blast of cold air rushed in, and standing there in the dim hallway light was a girl. She was drenched, trembling, her ears twitching beneath wet strands of silver hair, and behind her, a long tail moved weakly. Dripping with rainwater, she looked up at him, eyes glowing faintly gold in the dark. In a small voice, she said only one word, "Milk." Eli froze, unsure what to say. The city was full of strange people. But this, a cat-girl hybrid, was something else. He had seen their kind before, wandering the lower districts. Abandoned after the government shut down the hybrid programs, most people avoided them, calling them dangerous or defective. But right now, this one looked more lost than dangerous. "You're freezing," Eli said quietly. He hesitated, then moved aside and let her in. The girl stepped inside carefully, dripping water onto the floor. Her tail brushed against the door as she entered. Eli closed it behind her and sighed, unsure if he had just made a mistake. He handed her a towel and went to the fridge. There was only half a bottle of milk left, but he poured it into a cup and warmed it. When he gave it to her, she stared at the cup as if it were something sacred. She sipped slowly, eyes closing, and for the first time, Eli noticed how young she looked, maybe 17, maybe 18. Her skin was pale, her movements shy and careful, like she expected to be hit or shouted at. "What's your name?" he asked. She blinked, hesitated, and whispered. "Leary." The name sounded soft, almost like a purr. Eli nodded. "I'm Eli," he said. "You can stay until the rain stops." Leary looked at him with surprise, then relief, and nodded once. She curled up on the edge of the couch, wrapping herself in the towel, tail coiling near her legs. Hours passed. Eli tried to focus on his repair work, but he kept glancing at her, every now and then. Her ears twitched at small sounds, the humming fridge, the thunder, the creak of pipes. When lightning flashed outside, she flinched, and Eli saw faint scars along her arm, small burns. Old but deep. He didn't ask, but he understood. She wasn't just lost. She was hiding. By midnight, the rain had turned into a soft drizzle. Eli thought she would leave soon, but she didn't move. She just sat there, watching the city lights through the window, her reflection flickering in the glass. When he finally spoke, his voice was gentle. "You have somewhere to go?" Leary shook her head slowly, her ears drooping. "No. Nowhere safe," she murmured. "They don't want us anymore." Eli frowned. "Who doesn't?" "The humans," she said softly. "The ones who made us and the ones who fear us." Her voice carried no anger, only sadness. She turned away, finishing the last of her milk, and whispered, "Thank you." "For this," he nodded, unsure how to reply. He wasn't a hero, just a tired man trying to live quietly. But something about her words stayed with him. They don't want us anymore. He looked at her one more time before turning off the lights. "Get some rest," he said quietly. "You can stay for the night." When morning came, Eli woke to the smell of warm air and the soft sound of humming. He walked into the living room and froze. Leary was there, still in his apartment, wearing one of his old shirts, her tail swaying lazily as she cleaned the floor with a small rag. She looked up, smiled shyly, and said, "Good morning." Eli blinked. Half amused, half confused. You're still here? He asked. Leary tilted her head, ears twitching. You said I could stay, Eli sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. He hadn't expected her to take it literally. But as sunlight streamed through the cracked blinds, lighting her golden eyes, something about the quiet scene felt different, peaceful, almost human. Outside, the city roared with machines and cold laws. But inside this small apartment, a strange warmth had begun to grow. Eli didn't know it yet, but the simple act of kindness he showed that night would change his life forever, because the cat girl who only wanted milk would never truly leave his home again. The morning sun crawled across the dull walls of Eli's apartment. The air smelled faintly of warm milk and machine oil. Eli sat at his workbench, trying to focus on repairing a drone engine, but his mind kept drifting to the strange girl moving quietly behind him. Leary, the cat girl, moved like a shadow, silent, graceful, her bare feet making no sound on the metal floor. She was cleaning again. Humming softly in a tune he didn't know, Eli tried not to look. But every now and then he caught her watching him. When their eyes met, she smiled, a small, nervous smile, and continued sweeping. He sighed, putting down his tools. You don't have to do that, he said. Leary's ears twitched. You gave me milk, she replied softly. I have to do something. Eli rubbed his forehead, not sure how to argue with that logic. By afternoon, she had folded his laundry, fixed the loose curtain, and arranged his old books neatly on the shelf. The apartment had never looked so clean. Still, something about it made Eli uneasy. She didn't act like a guest, more like someone afraid of being sent away. When she finished her work, she sat quietly by the window, tail curling around her knees. Staring at the crowded streets below, Eli finally asked, You sure you don't have anywhere to go? Leary shook her head. The shelters don't take hybrids anymore, she said quietly. They call us property, not people. Eli frowned, feeling a spark of anger. That's wrong, he muttered. But Leary only gave a small, sad smile. It's normal, she said. We were made to serve, not to live. He wanted to say something, anything, but words failed. He wasn't a soldier or a rebel. He was just a repairman, one of millions trying to survive. Still, when he looked at her, those golden eyes, the bruises hidden beneath her sleeves, he couldn't bring himself to turn her away. Fine, he said finally. You can stay a few days, just until you figure things out. Leary's ears lifted slightly, her tail swaying once. Thank you, she whispered. That night, the rain returned. Leary sat by the heater, sipping warm milk again. While Eli watched from his desk, the silence between them wasn't uncomfortable anymore. But as the storm grew louder, Eli noticed her ears twitching again. This time sharper, alert. What's wrong? He asked. Someone's outside, she whispered. Eyes narrowing, Eli froze, listening, and he heard it. Heavy boots in the hallway. The faint hum of scanners through the peephole. He saw 2 city inspectors wearing black armor and carrying data tablets. They were scanning doors, checking for unregistered beings. Hybrid control, Eli muttered under his breath. Heart pounding, he turned to Leary. You need to hide now, without a word. Leary dashed across the room. Light as wind, she crawled into the narrow vent behind the couch, her tail flicking once before disappearing. Eli barely had time to sit before the knock came. He opened the door halfway, trying to sound calm. Evening. Sir, the inspector said coldly. Routine check. There have been reports of illegal hybrids in this block. Eli forced a smile. Just me here, officer, no one else. The man scanned the room with a device. Frowning, for a long moment, Eli thought it was over. But then the scanner beeped faintly. The inspector raised an eyebrow. You sure you live alone? Eli shrugged. Probably interference from my workshop tools. I repair old tech. The inspector hesitated, glanced at the bench, then finally nodded. All right, stay alert. Hybrids are unpredictable, he warned when they left. Eli closed the door and leaned against it. Breathing out slowly, a soft sound came from the vent. And Leary crawled out, her fur-tipped ears flattened low. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't mean to bring trouble. Eli shook his head. You didn't, he said. This city's the problem. Not you. For a long moment, neither spoke. The storm rumbled outside, but inside, the small apartment felt strangely safe again. Over the next few days, things became a quiet routine. Eli worked, Leary cooked or cleaned, and sometimes she sat by the window watching the city lights. She laughed once when his coffee machine exploded, and the sound surprised them both. It had been years since laughter filled that room. Eli began to realize he didn't mind her presence anymore, but one evening when he returned home, the door scanner flickered. Someone had tampered with it. Leary stood waiting by the window, her tail still, her eyes sharp. They're watching, she said quietly. The ones who made me. Eli felt a chill run through his spine. What do they want from you? She looked down, clutching the cup of milk in her hands. To erase me, she whispered. They think I still remember things I shouldn't. Eli stared at her, realization slowly sinking in. The girl who asked for milk wasn't just a stray hybrid. She was hiding from the people who created her. And by letting her stay, he had stepped into something far bigger than he understood. Outside, thunder cracked over the skyline. Leary looked at him with those golden eyes that once begged for milk, now filled with quiet fear. Will you send me away? She asked, voice trembling. Eli looked at her for a long time before replying. No, he said simply. I guess you're staying. She blinked, surprised, then smiled softly, her ears lifting once again, and as the city lights shimmered beyond the window, Eli knew one thing for certain. The girl who wouldn't leave had already changed his life, and the real story between them had only just begun. The city never truly slept, but tonight, its lights felt colder, sharper. Eli sat by his workbench, staring at the flickering display on his data pad. Lines of code ran down the screen, door logs, motion sensors, power usage. Something was wrong. The system showed unauthorized access to his apartment's security cameras. He frowned and called out, Leary. The cat girl lifted her head from the couch, ears twitching. She was curled up beneath a blanket, her tail flicking lazily, but when she saw his expression, she stood up. What is it? She asked softly. Eli turned the pad toward her. Someone's been watching us. Leary stared at the data for a long moment, her golden eyes darkening. Then, without a word, she walked to the door and pressed her hand against the scanner. Her fingers glowed faintly blue, and streams of code appeared in the air, holographic text in shifting patterns. Eli blinked in surprise. You can do that? She nodded slowly. I was built to, she whispered. Before they erased it, Eli felt a chill. Built to do what exactly? He asked. She hesitated, then looked at him. To guard, to infiltrate, to protect humans from other hybrids. Her voice trembled slightly. We were designed for loyalty, not freedom. Eli leaned back. Stunned, the idea that this quiet, gentle girl was once a weapon made his chest tighten. Leary closed her eyes, her ears lowering. I wasn't supposed to remember, she murmured, but something broke inside me. And now the system wants to fix it. She pointed to the flickering datapad. That access signal. It's from the Biocore division. They found me. Eli clenched his fists. And now they're tracking this place. He stood up, pacing, his mind racing with calculations. He had hidden old tech before, scrap drones, and AIs, but never a living hybrid. And not one hunted by the government itself. Leary sat quietly, eyes following him. Her voice came out small. If I go, they'll stop watching you. Eli turned sharply. No, that's not happening. You don't understand, she said softly. They'll send enforcers next, and they don't ask questions. He ran a hand through his hair, thinking, then we make it harder for them to find you, he said firmly. If they want to erase you, we'll hide you better. For the next few hours, Eli worked nonstop. He pulled apart old drones, reprogrammed decoys, rerouted his building's power feed. Leary helped, silent and precise, her claws cutting wires with exact control. Every now and then she would pause, eyes distant, as if trying to remember something just out of reach. Once she whispered, I used to have a name code. Leary 7. Eli looked at her. What happened to the others? Her tail lowered. They were shut down, she said quietly. One by one, the room filled with the soft hum of machines and the glow of blue lights. Finally, Eli uploaded a security blocker that scrambled external signals. Done, he muttered. If they scan us now, they'll think we're empty. Leary smiled faintly, relief softening her face, but then she froze, her ears perking sharply. Wait, she whispered. There's another signal nearby. Before Eli could react, the room lights flickered. The old communication console buzzed to life, static. Then a cold mechanical voice. Subject Leary 7 detected. Containment squad en route. Eli's heart stopped for a moment. He looked at her. They're already coming. Leary's breathing quickened. Tail puffed out in alarm. They shouldn't have found us so fast, she said, fear creeping into her tone. Eli grabbed his jacket. We need to move. He pulled open the hidden floor panel beneath the bench, an old maintenance shaft leading to the lower levels. Leary hesitated, staring at him. You'd leave your home for me? Eli met her eyes. You asked for milk that night, he said. Guess I'm just finishing what I started. For a moment, she blinked, then smiled softly, a smile filled with something warm and human. Then she followed him into the dark. They crawled through the narrow tunnel, the hum of drones echoing above. Red lights flashed faintly through the vents as enforcers scanned the area. Eli's hand brushed cold metal walls as he whispered, We'll head to the old sector. They never patrol there. Leary nodded, her glowing eyes leading the way through the shadows. Outside, the storm had returned, and thunder rumbled like the growl of a waking beast. When they finally emerged into an abandoned subway station, Eli stopped to catch his breath. The place smelled of rust and dust, but it was quiet. Hidden, safe for now, Leary looked around, her eyes glimmering faintly. I remember this, she said softly. This place. It was where we were trained. Eli turned to her. You mean other hybrids? She nodded. Yes, the others like me. But I'm the last one left, for a long moment. Neither spoke. Then Eli placed a hand on her shoulder. Then we make sure you stay that way, he said quietly. Leary looked up at him, her ears trembling slightly. In the dim light of the old station, she seemed both fragile and strong, a survivor from a forgotten experiment. As rainwater dripped through the cracked ceiling above, Eli began setting up a small generator. Leary watched him silently, her tail wrapping around her legs. Finally, she whispered, You didn't have to help me. Eli smiled faintly. Maybe not, he said, tightening a wire. But I'm human. It's what we do. Somewhere above, the city kept hunting. But down in the shadows of the old world, a strange new alliance had been born, between a lonely human who couldn't turn away, and a cat girl who was never supposed to exist. Lightning cracked across the dark towers, painting the sky in silver flashes down below. The streets glowed with holographic ads and drifting mist, and among that chaos, Eli and Leary ran. Their footsteps splashed through shallow water as sirens echoed far behind. Patrol drones buzzed overhead like hungry insects. Red eyes scanning every shadow. "Keep low," Eli whispered. Pulling Leary into a narrow alley, she nodded, breathing hard. Her tail twitching with tension, rain slid down her face. Her golden eyes glowing faintly under the neon light. "They're still tracking us," she said quietly. Eli looked at the small tracker in his hand, the signal pulse growing faster. "They've locked on again," he muttered. "Damn it." "The signal scrambler isn't holding." Leary closed her eyes. Pressing her fingers to the wall panel beside them, small sparks flickered as she accessed the grid directly through her neural code. After a few seconds, the tracker's light faded. "They won't find us for a while," she whispered, her voice tired but steady. Eli looked at her, drenched, exhausted, but unbroken. He wanted to tell her to rest, but there was no time. The sound of heavy boots came from the far end of the alley. A squad of enforcers moved in formation, their black armor glowing with blue lines. Leary's ears twitched sharply. "They brought hunters," she said, her tone turning cold. "Move," Eli ordered. Grabbing her hand, and together they ran. They darted through a maze of metal walkways and glowing pipes. The city stretched endlessly, a labyrinth of light and shadow. Blaster shots hissed past them, sparks flying as energy bolts struck the walls. Eli ducked behind a vending machine, panting. Leary crouched beside him, claws unsheathing instinctively for a moment. Their eyes met, human and hybrid, both breathing hard, both refusing to give up. Then one of the enforcers spotted them, shouting, "There! Capture the asset alive." Leary hissed low, "They mean me," before Eli could stop her. She leapt out into the open, moving faster than any human could follow. Her claws slashed through the air, slicing through armor with a metallic shriek. The enforcer dropped, his weapons scattering across the ground. Eli's eyes widened, leery. But she didn't stop. Her movements were a blur of motion, elegant and deadly. For a few seconds, she wasn't the shy girl asking for milk. She was something far older, something engineered for survival. When the last enforcer fell, Leary stood panting in the rain, her claws flickering with blue sparks. Eli stepped closer. "Careful. You okay?" Her ears flattened, eyes distant. "I don't like what they made me be," she whispered. "But it's the only reason I'm still alive." Eli placed a hand on her shoulder. "You're not just what they made. You're more than that." She looked up at him, and for the first time, she smiled through her tears. But the peace didn't last. A heavy roar echoed from above, a hunter drone, black as night, descending with spinning rotors. Its spotlight cut through the rain like a blade. Locking onto them, Leary grabbed Eli's arm. "Run!" They sprinted down the street, dodging fire as explosions lit the ground around them. Neon signs shattered, glass rained down, alarms screamed. Eli's lungs burned, but he didn't stop, not while Leary was still running beside him. They reached a sky bridge overlooking the lower levels of the city. Far below, lights shimmered like a sea of stars. Eli stopped, gasping. "We can't keep running." Leary turned to him, her eyes fierce. "Then we fight." She tore a metal rod from the railing and jammed it into an access port. Sparks flying, a surge of power leapt through the bridge's conduits. Frying the drone's sensors, it spiraled out of control, crashing into a billboard below with a fiery explosion. For a moment, silence followed, then only the sound of rain. Eli leaned on the railing, catching his breath. "You're insane," he said with a weak laugh. Leary grinned, her ears twitching. "You humans taught us well." But before they could rest, Eli's wristcom buzzed with static, A faint voice came through. "This is Biocore Command. All units converge on Sector Delta 9. He froze. "They're not stopping." Leary's tail lowered. "They won't stop until I'm gone." Eli looked at her, determination burning in his eyes. "Then we find a way to make them stop," he said. "For good," she blinked, confused. "You mean fight them?" He nodded. "They made you a weapon, right? Then let's use that to end it." Leary hesitated, then slowly nodded. "If you stand with me?" Eli met her gaze. Always, thunder cracked above. Reflecting off the skyscrapers, the city seemed endless. But together, they felt unstoppable. Two fugitives, one human, one hybrid, running from a system that feared its own creation. They slipped away into the lower tunnels again, guided by flickering neon light and the sound of their own heartbeats. Behind them, the smoke from the crashed drone rose into the rain-filled sky like a dark promise. For the first time, Eli wasn't just helping her survive. He was fighting for something bigger, for her freedom, and maybe for humanity's forgotten compassion. As they disappeared into the depths of the city, he whispered, "This isn't just your fight anymore, Leary," and she smiled, her voice soft but certain. "I know," she said. "It's ours now." The storm had passed by morning. Only the sound of dripping water echoed through the tunnels beneath Neo Tokyo 5. Eli and Leary sat beside a flickering generator, their clothes torn, faces dirty, but their spirits still unbroken. The soft hum of the machine filled the silence. Mixed with the faint rhythm of Leary's purring, it was strange. Eli thought how peaceful the world could feel even when everything above them was falling apart. Leary leaned against the wall, her tail curled loosely around her legs. "Do you think they'll stop looking for me?" she asked quietly. Eli shook his head. "No," he said. "But we'll stay ahead of them." She smiled faintly. "You talk like this is normal," he chuckled, rubbing his neck. "Maybe it's becoming normal." They had been hiding for 2 days now, moving through abandoned maintenance lines and forgotten subway tunnels. Eli had rigged a network of old drones as early warning systems, while Leary scouted paths no human could fit through. She had become his partner, his eyes in the dark, his shield when danger came close. And every night, when they stopped to rest, she always asked for the same thing, a small cup of milk. It had become their quiet ritual, a reminder of how it all began. As dawn's light filtered weakly through the cracked ceiling, Leary's ears twitched. "There's something above us," she whispered. Eli checked the sensors, a faint pulse, moving fast. "Drones again," he said. 3 of them, closing in. They packed quickly, grabbing their bags and tools, but before they could move, a metallic voice echoed through the corridor. "Subject Leary 7. Surrender for deactivation." The air filled with the buzz of rotors and the red glow of scanning lights. Leary's claws extended with a sharp metallic sound. "They found us." Eli stepped in front of her. "Stay behind me." She shook her head. "No. This time we fight together." The drones fired first, energy blasts streaking through the tunnel like lightning. Eli ducked, rolled, and hurled a magnetic charge that exploded midair. Taking one drone down in sparks, Leary leapt high, twisting in the air, slashing another apart with a burst of blue light. The last drone retreated, sending a signal back to its base. But Leary landed before it could escape, smashing it into the ground with her bare hands when silence returned. Eli stared at the wreckage, breathing hard. "They'll know exactly where we are now," he said. Leary nodded. "Then we don't run this time." Her golden eyes glowed brighter, reflecting fire and determination. "We end it here," she said softly. Eli watched her, the same girl who once stood at his door, shaking and lost, now standing strong like a warrior reborn. "All right," he said. "Let's finish it." They followed the signal trail back through the tunnels until it led them to an old government relay hub. The walls hummed with dormant power, and in the center stood a massive control core. "This is it," Eli said. "The link to the biocore mainframe." Leary placed her hand on the console, and data began to flow like streams of light. Her voice turned distant, mechanical. "I can override it, but I'll need time." Eli nodded, taking position by the entrance, readying his tools as makeshift weapons. When the enforcers arrived, the fight was brutal. Blasts lit the dark. Sparks showered across the floor. Eli fought with everything he had, swinging wrenches, throwing charges, while Leary's claws tore through armor and steel. Then the console flared bright white. Leary's body trembled as code poured into her neural link. She gasped, "It's working." "I'm rewriting the command structure," the system AI spoke in a cold voice. "Unauthorized override detected." Leary's eyes glowed brighter, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I'm not yours anymore," she whispered. "I choose who I am." With one last surge, she sent the virus Eli had built, a simple loop of freedom, designed to erase hybrid control codes across the city. The lights exploded in a wave of blue fire. Every hybrid unit connected to the grid received the same message: "You are free," across Neo Tokyo 5. Alarms blared, systems crashed, and thousands of enslaved beings woke to their own minds for the first time. The biocore network collapsed in seconds, leaving only silence in its wake. When Eli reached her, Leary was on her knees, trembling. Smoke rising from the console, he knelt beside her, lifting her head gently. "Leary, hey, stay with me." She opened her eyes weakly, the golden glow fading to a soft amber. "Did it work?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Eli smiled through tears. "Yeah, it worked." She smiled faintly. "Then we're free." He carried her out of the burning hub, the smell of ozone and metal thick in the air. Outside, dawn had broken across the skyline, the city glowing pink and gold under the clearing sky. They found refuge in a quiet cabin beyond the city's borders, an old maintenance shelter now filled with warmth and light. Days passed, the world above changed slowly. The government called it a system failure, but among the hybrids, whispers spread about a human who helped one of their own, about a girl who wanted milk and found freedom instead. One evening, Eli sat outside the cabin. Watching the sunset, Leary stepped out beside him, dressed in simple clothes, her tail swaying gently. "Do you regret helping me?" she asked softly. Eli smiled. "Not for a second," she purred quietly, leaning her head against his shoulder. "You gave me more than milk," she whispered. "You gave me a home." He looked at her, eyes soft. "Guess you're stuck here then," Leary smiled. "Forever sounds fine." The wind rustled through the trees, carrying the scent of rain and life, and in that peaceful silence, a human and a hybrid, once strangers in a cold city, finally found something worth keeping. Not just survival, but belonging. Not just kindness, but love. As the first stars appeared in the night sky, Eli wrapped his arm around her, and for the first time in years, he felt truly at peace. Far away, the broken towers of Neo Tokyo still flickered with fading lights. But in one small cabin under the open sky, a new kind of future began. The girl who once came for milk had found her place, and the man who opened his door that night had finally found his home.